In the wings for his reaction to Rachel Reeves' budget is the top columnist at the Mail on Sunday, Dan Hodges. But first, Dolan's dispatch. Socialism, the failed idea that never dies. Rachel Reeves has achieved her political dream. She has created equality by making all of us poorer. As wealth-creating Brits flee the country, the rest of us will sink very quickly in the economic quicksand that is this wretched, awful economy that we have in 2025, an economy created by the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. What we witnessed yesterday in the House of Commons was a crippling catalyst in our collective race to the bottom. And as the wealthy and productive leave our shores, once again Starmer and Reeves, the most dangerous double act since the craze, will once again run out of other people's money, and we will pay the price. This is a budget which punishes anyone that works, and I mean anyone, and rewards anyone that does not. It was the work shy, and it was the idle and the feckless who were the beneficiaries of this budget over those who get up in the morning and work hard. Our vast and unsustainable welfare state, with all the wrong incentives, has been supercharged and given a line of cocaine that would have even Johnny Depp blushing, with a cash bonanza for those on benefits. Alarm clock Britain putting in a shift for millions of idle freeloaders, Labour's preferred constituency, who don't even know what an alarm clock is. No reprieve for the farmers, which means the total wipeout of small and medium-sized farming enterprises that have been in the same family for generations. Millions dragged into the higher rate of tax, sending a clear message from number 11, which is that even a modest income is seen as rich by these quasi-communists who are currently in charge. If you buy an electric car now, you're neither saving the planet nor any money. Another massive con from this egregiously dishonest administration, who lied to the public in July 2024 when they said that they would not raise taxes. Their promise not to do so was akin to Count Dracula committing not to visit that blood bank. Savers clobbered, people with pensions clobbered, people who own their own home, especially if it's a big one, clobbered. People who saved the Exchequer millions by educating their kids privately, clobbered. The only thing that saw a reprieve was the bingo, where duty will be removed. And what we saw yesterday was socialist bingo in all of its unadulterated glory. An ever-expanding state, ever higher taxes, spiralling debt, a war on aspiration, and a punishment beating of wealth creators who pay the lion's share of tax, who invest, who create jobs, and whose efforts bankroll this increasingly dysfunctional and failed country. Rachel from Accounts has taxed everything that moves, including betting, large houses, farmers, and anyone that gets up in the morning and puts a shift in. She's even taxed milkshakes, which is bananas. You see what I've done there? And coffee-flavoured drinks. Well, hard-working Brits are definitely waking up and smelling the coffee today. Let's get reaction now from one of my favourite journalists, the top columnist and commentator at the Mail on Sunday, Dan Hodges. Good morning, Dan.
Good morning.
Dan, if anything, that budget was worse than expected.
Well, it was certainly as bad as expected. I mean, I think what is interesting about this budget, I mean, as you kind of articulated in that monologue, is normally budgets are quite complex. You know, they're quite complex things in terms of the delivery. They're quite complex things to analyse for people such as myself, and it takes a bit of time for the economic and political impact to feed through. I think the one thing we can give Rachel Reeves credit for, there is clarity in this budget, and the clarity is around the very simple fact that in the general election, Rachel Reeves and the Labour Party, in their manifesto, gave a commitment not to raise taxes on working people. 12 months ago, she repeated that pledge. She actually said at the budget at the time she specifically would not freeze tax thresholds for working people, because that would have been effectively a breach of the manifesto commitment. And yesterday she raised taxes for working people. So there's no ambiguity. Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer lied to the British people in that general election. They are taxing working people after they pledged not to. Remember, even less than a year ago, Rachel Reeves was still pledging not to. And so it is quite clear what the political ramifications for Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are. It's over for them now politically. The only question moving forward is it over for Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer politically, or is it over for the Labour Party politically? And that's just the question mark that we'll have to answer in the coming months.
Indeed, and I think something that's not been discussed enough, Dan, is the ongoing threat of inflation, which is a tax on all of my viewers and listeners, and a tax which affects most egregiously the poorest in our society. And if you look at the policies, whether it's, massive payouts to the public sector unions, whether it's increasing the minimum wage, adding costs to business, the workers' rights package, all of these policies are inflationary. And she celebrated at the dispatch box yesterday that in the course of the next 12 months, inflation will come down by 0.5%. Well, that will still be almost double the Bank of England's target.
Yeah, and again, the framing of this, the framing we had in certainly in the last week was this was going to be a budget that would address the cost of living crisis.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the figures, the OBR are quite clear. The cost of living crisis as a result of this budget will get worse. So we've got a budget in which taxes will go up, even though the Chancellor and Keir Starmer pledged they would not go up. They will go up for working people. The cost of living crisis will get worse for working people. And the other thing that Rachel Reeves obviously said at the start of this year, remember there was a sudden dramatic pivot in the government's economic strategy at the start of the year when Rachel Reeves said her priority would be growth, growth, growth. The OBR have calculated that as a result of her budget, the growth will stagnate next year, the year after that, the year after that, and the year after that. Now, that's not my assessment. That's her own economic watchdog's assessment. So whichever way you look at it, what Rachel Reeves is doing, and we can debate till the cows come home about what her political and economic inheritance was. Obviously, again, I'm slightly perplexed because, again, if you remember, at the time of the welfare rebellion, when Labour MPs ditched Labour's welfare reforms, Rachel Reeves suddenly turned around and told us, because of her brilliant economic stewardship, she could afford now to reverse the welfare cuts. Remember, she said she could afford to reform the impact on winter fuel allowance because of her amazing stewardship. And yesterday, she stood up and suddenly said, well, actually, I said I fixed the economy. Well, I haven't after all, and that's why I've got to break my manifesto pledge. So across the board, as I said, there is absolutely no doubt about what the political implications of this will be for her now, because the background to this, the dire political background, with obviously Labour MPs openly talking about replacing Keir Starmer, that was before yesterday. So what's going to happen in the days and weeks ahead, God only knows.
Most definitely. Let's take a listen to the Chancellor, who said that those with the broadest shoulders must bear the burden. Let's take a listen, Dan.
In the manifesto, we were very clear. It was the rates of income tax, national insurance and VAT. But I'm not going to get into semantics. I recognise that we are asking people to contribute more by freezing those allowances.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how dishonest has the Chancellor been, Dan?
11. I mean,
wow.
This is, I said it yesterday. For those of your viewers old enough to remember, there was an infamous election campaign in which George Bush Sr. Famously pledged "Read my lips, no new taxes." This is Rachel Reeves' "Read my lips, no new taxes" moment. She has admitted. I mean, I was tweeting about earlier on a different broadcasting channel this morning. She has openly admitted she is taxing working people, having pledged in the manifesto not to tax working people. And this is not some sort of minor sort of tucked away on page 97 of the manifesto breach. This was at the heart of what Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer told the country. They said, oh no, don't worry, our plans are are completely well costed, well funded. We won't need to raise taxes. Now their argument is, oh well, we didn't realise what we were inheriting. Okay, fine, you can debate that. But as I said, it's less than a year ago, Rachel Reeves went to the CBI conference. We've all seen the clip and said, let me be very clear, I will not be coming back in 12 months' time with more borrowing, more public spending, and more tax rises. And that's literally what she did. So even on her own terms, this argument, oh, well, I didn't know until I got into the Treasury and opened the books, and oh my God, the Tories had left this appalling black hole for me. Even if you accept that, she certainly knew what the state of the economy was 11 months ago.
She most definitely did. And listen, I'll be at the front of the queue, Dan, to absolutely condemn the previous Conservative government over 14 years, in which wokery infiltrated our public institutions, in which we had open borders and unsustainable legal net migration. I will condemn the Tories for the highest tax burden since the Second World War, for all of the inflation, for, in my view, the COVID overreaction when you look at Florida, Texas and Sweden, who did very little and had the same outcomes, net zero. The list is endless of Tory failure. And my viewers and listeners are furious with the Tories, Dan. But Labour said they'd make things better. They've made things worse. Can we take a listen to Rachel Reeves on the two-child benefit cap, which is going to be lifted? Take a listen.
I can announce today, fully costed and fully funded, the removal of the two-child limit in full from April.
Dan, did you hear that cheer? It was really a budget for left-wing Labour MPs, not my viewers and listeners.
Absolutely, but this is the fascinating thing yesterday. So I was in the House of Commons yesterday, obviously after the budget, talking to Labour MPs. I was being messaged by Labour MPs, and I've written it in my column in the Daily Mail today. We've all presented this narrative that exactly that this was a budget effectively written by Labour backbenchers and not by Rachel Reeves herself. But I was pretty hard pressed yesterday to find a Labour MP who would unequivocally endorse what Rachel Reeves did. Given this was supposed to be a budget for placating angry Labour MPs, giving Labour MPs what they wanted, I couldn't find many who actually thought, were prepared to come out and say, this is brilliant. The sort of the range of responses I had was from a kind of neutral, this isn't going to change anything, we're still going to have to get rid of Keir Starmer, to, as you've just identified, the idea of putting up working people's taxes to pay for additional welfare, when all the polling is very, very clear on this. The public, including Labour Party, the majority of Labour Party voters, supported the two-child benefit cap. I literally do not understand where the politics is behind this, because even on, Rachel Reeves' own rationale, I mean, this was a budget primarily to try and save Rachel Reeves' skin and try and save Keir Starmer's skin politically. Even on those terms, I don't see how she thought it was going to work. It was so strange yesterday. It was like Labour MPs were wandering around saying, well, did you ask for the two-child benefit cap to be scrapped? Because I didn't. Who did? And it was almost like somewhere along the line, the Labour MPs have sort of fallen into this trap of thinking not just that this is what the country wants, when obviously it isn't, but it's what they Labour MPs thought they wanted. And they were yesterday, they were scratching their heads saying, hang on a second, I'm not sure I did want this.
Dan, you are the most keen-eyed and articulate critic of this current Labour administration, and I would urge my viewers and listeners to take a look at your latest piece in the Daily Mail, the headline of which, the most chaotic budget in history will be Reeves' last. Dan Hodges, thank you so much for joining us. Look forward to speaking to you again in the near future. Dan Hodges is a columnist at The Mail and The Mail on Sunday. This